I wore my bodycon black dress, matched it with a bright red shade of lipstick, wore my silver hoops, and let my curls loose. I didn't have an hourglass figure, and my legs visible from my mid-thigh wasn't smooth, flawless skin. But as I wore my little black dress and stared at the mirror, I felt beautiful, not incomparably gorgeous, but more than I usually feel when I stare at myself. Still, there was another thing, something which made my chest a little heavier whenever I wore this dress. Well, I guess it was time to lighten my chest. I stepped into my black heels and slowly went into the living room. "Missed me?" I called out as I stepped into the living room. Unfortunately, the gag in my guest's mouth prevented him from replying. The living room was all prepared for my little game. I had pushed back the sofas and tables and lined the clearing with thick plastic sheets. My guest sat in the center, bound and gagged and ready for entertainment. "I'm so sorry. I must have taken a long while to get ready. You must have been bored. Well, never fear, cause the fun has arrived." The bound man gave no reply except for a small whimper. "I would love to ungag you, but you see, I don't think the neighbors would appreciate the noise. By the way, do you remember this dress? Why don't you blink twice if you do?" As expected, there was no blink. "I think you should try a bit harder to remember. While you do, let me go and get something from the kitchen." I slowly strolled into the kitchen and opened up my drawer and took out the new butcher knife I bought. It was time to see how sharp it really was, I guess. I walked into the living room again and took out my phone. I connected it to the Bluetooth speakers and loud music filled the room. I turned to my guest and said, "That sorts of cheers up the room, right?" I don't think he even heard me because he was too busy staring at the knife in my hand. "Ah, yes, the knife. We'll come to that in a bit. But first, have you thought about my question? Do you remember the dress?" He vigorously shook his head. I moved closer so he could hear every word I spoke over the roar of the music. "I see. Well, I guess I better remind you of it then, right?" I continued, not waiting for a response. It was a New Year's Eve. I had gotten all pretty, just like today, to celebrate my night out. I had bought my dress especially for that night. To get to the party, I had to sit on the back of a motorbike, and obviously my dress hiked up a bit. It didn't bother me much. But as the bike reached the main road, I started getting these lewd stares which made me uncomfortable. I ignored it. Because you see, being a girl meant ignoring certain stuff, not because I'm used to it, but because if I don't, I could never enjoy my life. Then we reached a traffic signal, and that is where we met each other. While we were waiting for the signal, you came near me and touched me, on my legs. But before I could do anything or understand what happened, the signal turned green and you walked off. I looked into my victim's face and saw that there wasn't any signs of recognition in his face. Anger slowly started seeping out from the carefully vaulted space in my mind. Funny, isn't it? You were the reason I couldn't enjoy what would have been a great evening, the reason I felt uncomfortable in my new dress, the reason I played back that night 1,000,000 times in my head, and you don't even remember it. I went and increased the volume, came back to him and said, "I wanted to start off with the finger that touched me. But since you don't remember, let's start at one end and go till we reach the other, okay?" I didn't wait for his consent because he never asked mine. Muffled screams tried filling the room, but the loud music drowned it. Not even his screams deserved to survive. The knife was sharp enough to make my work easy and quick. After I finished, I took out another chair, sat down, and admired my art. He was still gagged but barely conscious, and in front of him, carefully arranged, were his fingers, his toes, his palms, his feet, his balls, and his cock. I had a hard time finding you, but I am quite delighted I did. You must be wondering why such aggression to just a touch. But you see, it wasn't just this touch. It was all those stares, those inappropriate comments, and those unwanted touches that I gathered over the years, and your touch just popped open the stitches that had carefully kept the anger in check. It's not just me, every girl has the same kind of problems growing up, and it's just a matter of time before they all start acting out. The heaviness in my chest had disappeared, and I felt calm. 2 days later, I sat and watched the television as the headlines flashed with the news of the recovery of a mutilated body in the outskirts of the city. The identity was still not determined as the victim was beheaded and the head was not yet found. I glanced at the jar of formalin on my table, and from within it, the newsworthy victim stared back at me with a smile that I had carved on his face just before I chopped off his head. I took the jar to the newly bought wooden shelf in my bedroom and kept it inside. I am certain that the police will come knocking on my doors to handcuff me, but for now the shelf is large and can hold many, many more jars.
Check out some of my other videos. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. New videos every day. Good luck and take care of yourself.